Hello and welcome to Guides.Global. My name's John Howell and I'm the editor, and with me today I have Başak Yıldız Orkun, who is a lawyer here in Bodrum, Turkey. And Başak, welcome to you.
Hello, John.
In this video we're going to deal at some length with the process of buying a property here in Turkey, and it's going to be divided for the convenience of our audience into various sections, bite-sized chunks. I suppose the first question we have to ask is, can a foreign person own a property in Turkey?
The answer will be yes, but there are some minor restrictions because some part of Turkey is registered as a military zone, strategical or military zone, and they are not open the foreign sales. But a part of that areas, a foreigner can buy property.
And so a part of the process of buying a property is that your lawyer has to do a check to make sure that this property is not in a military zone.
Correct.
And you get a clearance certificate
Correct.
from the military authorities.
Actually, what we have is we have a registry. We call it like a land registry. You can see all the details of that individual unit. And if there is a military restriction, you can see that restriction on the books.
Yes.
And on the computer system.
And I think it's important for people to understand that this is not always obvious. You know, you might expect a military zone to be a zone on the coast immediately looking out over the Greek islands, for example, but some of these military zones are in very strange places where there's no obvious military value to them at all.
Yeah, there might be a really serious, like a military camping next to that area, so it could also make it strategical.
Or it might just be a piece of property that would block the view of the generals. So you have always to make the check whether it's a military zone property, and if it is, a foreign person can't buy.
Yeah.
Now, there are some ways, aren't there, of getting around that if you really want to, by buying in the name of a Turkish company or a Turkish person, but it's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea. In the past, we had the opportunity, if you set up a Turkish company, by your whole like a shareholding by non-national, you could still buy a military zone, but also it is now changed. So the company
majority Turkish owned.
It has to be majority Turkish owned and directed by a Turkish citizen.
So that means if you buy a property in a military zone, effectively you've got to put it into the name of a Turkish citizen, and then you're completely dependent on the trust and goodwill and honesty of that person.
That's correct, and the trust agreement could be debatable. We will be covering maybe later, so I would rather not to have it unless it's very protective.
If they die, it is then their property and there'll be inheritance taxes to pay and all sorts. So basically, I'm afraid if the property is in a military zone, however lovely it may be, it's probably better not to buy it.
Yeah, because we wouldn't say it's a safe purchase.
Yes. Okay, now, and the only other problem if you're wanting to buy property is if you want to buy a vast piece of land, isn't it? Because there is a maximum that a person can own.
Yeah, our rules are saying you can only buy up to 30 hectares. Yes. And above that you are like subject to a special permission, and the permission is not given per person, by individual. They are like a Commission of Ministers has to make a decision to increase that.
Yes, and 30 hectares, for those still used to acres, is something like, 60, 70 acres. So it's quite a big piece of land. It's certainly far more than most people are going to want unless they're a farmer.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect an individual like a purchase that for their own use. It's presumably for more like a business matter.
And if you are looking to do some business here in Turkey involving land, then you can have an application made to the Council of Ministers, but it's far from clear whether you'll get permission,
or not,
and also it's going to be very time consuming and quite costly.
Correct.
Yes. So apart from those two restrictions, any foreigner from any nationality can buy any property in Turkey.
Yes, we made a huge change in our code, back about 5 years, I believe, because previously we were looking for the reciprocity agreement between the countries to be able to purchase a property in Turkey, but we lifted that, so any country now can buy a property.
Yes, in those days you could only buy here if your country allowed Turks to buy in your country. Yeah. Okay, we have heard some horror stories about people buying property in Turkey and things going wrong, developments not being completed, etc., etc. Mainly, I guess, they're from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What went wrong and why isn't that going to happen today?
Back in 2004-5, I think there was a really high interest in Turkey about the property market, because we have a lovely weather, the prices are really competitive with the other countries, and living cost in Turkey is quite low comparing with the European countries because of the rates of Turkish lira. So which make the, I think our developers, either they are like a proper developer or just the taxi drivers become a developer, greedy. So the developments are being sold as an off plan. I think that is that caused mainly the problems, because the developers just made a development without having the cost calculations properly, and they started to sell from the as it's just the land without having any property in any stage, and then they couldn't really keep up with the budget, and they gone bust. So
yes.
Then the horror stories really started.
And of course you also had developers who sold property on land they didn't own, or where they hadn't got building permission, and all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
There is no need to worry about that today, is there? Because if you take the proper precautions when you buy a house, those things will not happen.
I think this is a decision of the person, because if you want to catch a really good deal, you have to take some risks. Like an off-plan project is, I think, always a risk, because in Turkey we don't have a government protection
yes.
for your money that you lend in the beginning. So, but if you want to go for a really safe purchase, we have completed properties which has all licenses in place, so you will not face any horror
yes.
story.
The danger is always paying over money before you get the keys.
Oh, this shouldn't be done anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, so that's horror stories out of the way.